The Berry Center exists to continue my family's work in agriculture. My father, Wendell Berry, my grandfather, John Berry Sr., and my uncle, John Berry Jr. They have devoted their lives to land-saving communities and the people in them. And it occurred to me about 3 years ago that their work was going to need to continue, and it looked like I was going to need to continue it. And so that's what the Berry Center is, and one of our goals is to educate young farmers, and that's the St. Catherine program.
Louisville has risen to have really an international reputation now for our local food movement, our restaurant scene here that's been built around harmony with our local food suppliers in terms of creativity in the restaurants. And Zagat, the famous restaurant review company, named the 8 foodiest cities in the world. Louisville was the only city in North America. And so we're seeing an increasing amount of tourism to the city for people to come and enjoy our food system here, of which bourbon, I see Bill in the back there, is a big part of our food movement here in Louisville. Bourbon is the most rapidly growing spirits category in the world right now, and so people are enamored by that. So between food and beverage, bourbon, lots of people are coming to Louisville right now. So as a mayor, you want your city to have authenticity and something unique to offer. Now, it just so happens that that is a byproduct of something that's extraordinarily important to happen on the food supply at the same time. And I've always loved to go to farmers markets. I've always you see people connect with food at farmers markets, right? I mean, there's something happening there. My wife Alex is here. We've always liked to attempt to grow food. I should put it that way. Maybe that'll be a byproduct of me being involved with you. I'll finally get some success here. So it's a natural thing that people have inside of them to grow food and to appreciate food, and therefore the source of the food. And clearly the food system is sick right now in terms of the dominance by agribusiness, and not just the economics of it then, but how that's flowed down into what's happening in some of our rural areas in terms of the economy of the rural areas. The economies of the rural areas around Louisville need to be healthy for Louisville to be healthy. And when you take a look at the options for commerce and business, that goes back to the farm as well. So to me, it's one of those things where we're just trying to unlearn, what we always knew, which I don't know, was it 50 or 60 years ago? We wouldn't even call it a local food movement. That's just how people got their groceries. And when you go, you mentioned earlier about us being an epicenter of a local food movement. We are in the United States, but when you go to, let's say, countries like Italy, they really haven't lost that to a certain degree. So we're bringing it back here. So to me, it's a classic win-win. It's great for our city. It's great for the farmers. It's great for the economy. It's great for the environment. And I think that's something that a mayor should be concerned about.
I went to St. Catherine, and after going to a whole lot of schools all over the place, and loved it. I just loved it. It's a beautiful little school on an 800-acre farm. The people are wonderful. And it's a school that clearly has local affections. It knows where it is. It's proud to be there. It's not trying to be something that it isn't. And also, they weren't very impressed with the Berry Center or my father's supposed reputation. They wanted to know how we fit them. Now that seemed to me to be important, that we were hooking our work onto something old and wonderful. I think that it would be useful to talk a minute about the demand study that was just done, and because that tells us why we need the St. Catherine program, I think.
We started in Louisville about probably 4 or 5 years ago with something called a farm-to-table movement, when our local restaurateurs were trying to source more local food, and we call local food roughly anything that comes from 100 miles or so. It's just a concept of being able to produce close to the source of consumption. We consume about $3 billion worth of food in Louisville every year. And so I'm a businessman or entrepreneur that just happens to be mayor right now, so I keep asking these inconvenient questions to people like, well, how much local food is there a demand for? and nobody could answer that question. And we're investing a lot of time, and we have partners with the Kentucky Department of Agriculture all around this, and to me it seemed like a fundamental answer we needed to have. So we apparently have done the first demand study of local food for a metropolitan region in the country, which kind of baffles my mind. But what we found out was we have, of the $3 billion, right now we have around $100 to $200 million being purchased, and we have demand for $800 million. So we don't have nearly the producers that we need. But farming is not a venture capital type of activity. In other words, a farmer just doesn't say, well, maybe let's try some turnips this year and some apples, and I'll see if anybody's going to buy them when they come out of the ground, right? There's not a lot of farmers sitting around getting rich. And so they need to have a guaranteed contract before they plant. So if by God's good graces everything works out all right so that the crops come up as they should be, somebody's going to buy them. So what this demand study does for us then is tells us, obviously the gross demand, but then demand by commodity. It helps us identify the major customer sources. There's tremendous interest in local food at the institutional level, hospitals, schools, et cetera. Obviously, good, healthy food is in concert with what their missions are as well.
Sarah Frischner says that Louisville is pushing institutions harder than any other city big suppliers know of.
Well, interestingly so, like Cisco Foods, everybody probably knows Cisco, large food wholesaler. How will they respond to this local food movement, right? I mean,
they're having to.
Exactly. They might want to say this is an inconvenient truth for us as well. It's harder to source and distribute local food than it is just to say, give me another 5,000 pounds in cartons from distributor X. So Cisco is starting to figure out how to source local foods. We're having all types of unanticipated positive things happen. Like Atria is a local senior care company that's headquartered in Louisville. They have about 75 facilities all over the country that's changing their whole nutrition and dietary program based on the effect of local food on our local restaurants here and the increase in quality that they've seen. So they're using that as a competitive advantage for themselves in their nursing homes around the country. Local food, higher quality food. So a lot of good things are happening.